they was just too comfortable. You know, they was getting layups, dunks, free throws, a little bit of everything, and we fought back hard. But they, you know, I mean, give them a lot of credit. They did what they were supposed to do. They came here and they got a win.
We got the Jazz. We got the Jazz.
Fife is somewhere rolling in his grave right now.
Welcome to SI Now. I'm Robin Lundberg. She's Madeline Burke, and that was a Tribe Called Quest reference in honor of the Utah Jazz evening the series with the Houston Rockets in H-Town. We've been talking Warriors-Rockets like it is inevitable. We kind of undersold everything about the Jazz?
I think we have. I mean, it's interesting because last summer, you know, Gordon Hayward left in free agency and went to Boston, of course, injured in the first game of the season. But when he left, I think a lot of people looked at Utah and said, okay, well, this is a big rebuild. They're in the playoffs. They won their first round series. They're in the second round, and they are, you know, making a statement, beating the Rockets in Houston. You've got Alec Burks putting up 17 points on 11 shots. You've got Toby from The Office, Joe Ingles out there balling 27 points, having a career night. And Donovan Mitchell, young rookie, he didn't even get 20 points in this playoff game like he's been doing, but the team rose to the occasion, and again, on the road. They're going to bring this series back to Utah in a loud arena where elevation is a factor. People talk about elevation in Denver, but Utah also has that elevation. The air is thinner. It makes it a little bit harder for the cardio, and running up and down the court slows you down. I think Utah is here for this.
They're a very good team, right? But their entire essence is not flashy. You know, we've talked about Donovan Mitchell in the Rookie of the Year race, but not really what he can do to help them win. Gobert isn't like a superstar that's resonating for people. Joe Ingles, you mentioned. I don't think people will believe he's good no matter how good he plays because he doesn't look like he should be good.
Because right? He looks like he's working in HR at Dunder Mifflin. But I agree. But again, like you mentioned, they're not flashy, but Houston's running a pick and roll on every single play as well. It's two very different offenses, two very different teams. Very interesting series to watch. All right. Elsewhere, during Tuesday night's broadcast on TNT, Charles Barkley said of Draymond Green, quote, "I just want somebody to punch him in the face." Now, a reporter then asked Green about that comment after the game, to which Draymond responded by saying, quote, "If you feel that strongly about something, he's even seen me a million times, then punch me in my face when you see me. If you're not going to punch me in my face when you see me, then shut up." All right, well, Wednesday night, Barkley went on the air and apologized for his comment. Here's what he said.
Draymond is a hell of a player. He's an irritant. He annoys me at times, but he's a hell of a player. But what I said was wrong, and I apologized.
Robin, are you satisfied with this apology?
Yes, I am satisfied with the apology because, look, this isn't something he should be fired for. We don't need to lose our minds, but you can't be saying I want to punch someone in the face as a broadcaster. You could say, right, if I was playing against him, I would have wanted to punch him in the face.
Which Shaq is very familiar with that dynamic.
And this comes along with the territory of being Charles Barkley. He says this kind of stuff. He needs to expect a response, but he needs to also be aware of who he is, his platform, and the way he's wording what he's saying.
And in all fairness, too, if you saw the broadcast and saw how Barkley initially said it, it was very on brand for Inside the NBA broadcast. It was not said in a threatening manner. It was said in jest. And when Green was, you know, asked about it by the reporter afterwards, I think he didn't really understand the context, understand the joke. And so it's a little bit of a different dynamic there. But that being said, he shouldn't have said that. He shouldn't have said that. I mean, I understand what he was trying to say. He's an irritating player. He's got a lot going on. But, yeah, there's better ways to make that point.
Meanwhile, in other news, according to a report in the New York Times, Washington Redskins cheerleaders were required to pose topless for a photo shoot in Costa Rica in 2013 in front of spectators invited by the team, in addition to some being told to serve as escorts to a nightclub for some of the team's male sponsors. This was the response issued by the organization. Each Redskin cheerleader is contractually protected to ensure a safe and constructive environment. The work our cheerleaders do in our community, visiting our troops abroad, and supporting our team on the field is something the Redskins organization and our fans take great pride in. While the NFL issued a statement of its own, saying that everyone who works in the NFL has the right to work in a positive and respectful environment free from harassment. But is this the case here?
Absolutely not. This is not the case here. I mean, first of all, in the beginning of that Redskins statement, they said this is a premier organization. You don't get to call yourself a premier organization if you're still calling yourselves the Redskins. That aside, though, these women were taken on this trip. The second they landed, their passports were collected from their boss. So they are now essentially being held with this group, and not against their will, but they don't have the freedom to go and come and go as they please. A lot of these women were told at the end of this topless photo shoot, after there were men there that they were not expecting to be there, then they're told that they have to go to the club with these men. some of them ended up in tears because they felt like they didn't have an option. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, you always have an option. Not necessarily. There's circumstantial points where people will be like, you know what? They feel pressured, they feel undue pressure in a work environment. You know, Sports Illustrated puts out a swimsuit issue every year. There are photos with women in body paint. There are photos with women topless or wearing little to no clothing, but they are very respectful on the set of how these women are treated. The Redskins, these cheerleaders in the NFL need to have that same respect.
My problem with the response here is that they don't even address the specifics whatsoever. You know, they think they can just sort of clean their hands of it by putting out a statement. And eventually, some of these negative stories have to catch up to the NFL. It's just exhausting. It feels like all the time. And it's not something you can just go, oh, let's push this to the side. When we're dealing with this in itself, you have to directly address it and say, what happened here is totally out of bounds, and we need to take a close look at our policies and how our teams can actually use the cheerleaders in their occupation.
Exactly, and by not addressing it, it's almost as though accepting that this is okay, and it's not. All right, as for the legal aspect of the story, we now bring in SI legal analyst Michael McCann. Michael, thanks for joining us. First of all, could the NFL be facing legal ramifications from this latest Washington cheerleader story?
Well, Madeline, the challenge for bringing any kind of legal action over this incident or series of incidents, it sounds like, is that they occurred a long time ago, 5 years ago. And under the law, there are statutes of limitations that dictate how long somebody has to bring a claim. And normally with discrimination-related claims, it's either 180 days, 300 days. This is if somebody's going to pursue a federal charge with the EEOC, or under state law, it's usually 1 to 3 years. So in all likelihood, too much time has passed. That's going to be a real hurdle for bringing any kind of legal action. That said, we haven't looked at any potential employment contracts between the cheerleaders and the Redskins. They might provide for some claims, but right now it looks like it happened a little bit too long ago for the NFL to have any kind of legal consequence, notwithstanding, of course, the issues that you and Robin have talked about, which is that this is really serious and needs to be addressed as a policy matter.
Meanwhile, another tough story out of the NFL, Michael. Reid filed a collusion grievance against the league. How important is the timing for Reid filing this? Clearly, he was looking for a job, and this only came after the other options were exhausted?
Yeah, that's right, Robin. And for this type of situation under Article 17 of the collective bargaining agreement, it must have occurred given the timeline from the beginning of February until now. So he thinks that during that window, this free agency window, he has somehow been victimized by collusion. We don't know the specifics of the allegation, but we do know that collusion requires 2 or more teams or the NFL and at least one team conspiring to deny him the right to sign with the team. So it doesn't take a league-wide conspiracy. It can actually be really small in that it could be just 2 teams talking to each other and saying, let's not sign this guy because of his participation or lack of participation in the national anthem and in his protest efforts. We don't know yet what kind of evidence exists, but that's the time window we're talking about.
Of course, Michael, we know that Reid was the first player to kneel alongside Colin Kaepernick. Does Reid's suit help Kaepernick's and vice versa?
Potentially. It depends on whether or not these collusion grievances bring up evidence that the other could rely on. We know that Reid was part of a meeting last October held at the NFL's headquarters involving a group of owners, league officials, and players, where the players were almost surprised, it sounds like, with owners talking about their worry about President Trump somehow potentially punishing the league over a failure to respond with great force against Colin Kaepernick. That could arguably be a launching point to argue that owners are worried that there are going to be consequences for not being tough enough on Kaepernick and, by extension, Reid and other players who are protesting. So, yeah, it's conceivable that each's case, particularly given that they played on the 49ers, could bring up commonalities, but we don't know if that's the case yet.
Michael, this is a continually evolving story. I'm sure we'll hear more from you on it. Thanks, as always, for your legal insight.
Thank you.
To To go over Giancarlo Stanton and the other stories from Major League Baseball, now joined by SI's MLB editor Albert Chen for a game of fair or foul. Fair meaning it's reasonable, foul meaning too far. I think most people are familiar with the terminology, Albert. Let's start with Stanton. Luis Severino said he's going to hit 50 home runs this year. Is that fair or foul?
Well, look, I love Severino's enthusiasm. I'm his teammate, but I'm going to go foul here. Stanton's going to be absolutely fine. Right now, slow start. He's on pace for less than 40 home runs. But even you look at Stanton's historical body of work here, he had only hit more than 40 home runs only one time in his entire career entering this season. So if you just go based on track record, I think it's a bit of a stretch. Stanton's still a great player, but no, 50 is going to be a stretch this year.
Stanton and the Yankees have righted the ship, but the Red Sox have been good all year. So how about this one? The Yankees and Red Sox will have the two best records in baseball. Fair or foul?
I'm going to go foul there. Look, what's interesting is we were here a few weeks ago talking about all these super teams, and now you look at the Dodgers and the Nationals, and these teams are struggling right now, and the Red Sox and Yankees look legitimately like the two best teams in baseball, but they're just going to be beating up on each other throughout the course of the season. I think you look at the Indians and the Astros as two teams who are going to finish with better records in the American League. But look, the Yankees, Red Sox, the rivalry is back. I love it, but I think that they're just going to be beating up on themselves this season.
All right, you're fouling these off so far. Let's go to the next one. Mookie Betts will win the MVP. Fair or foul?
I'm going to go fair there.
Fair, all right.
And totally recognizing there is a guy named Mr. Trout in the American League, and Mike Trout's a terrific player, but Betts, we kind of knew this season was going to happen where he was emerging as this just total superstar. Look, this is a guy who's finished second, and last year even with kind of a subpar season, 6th in American League MVP voting. But man, he's figuring things out. He's not chasing balls outside of the zone. He's totally locked in on an incredible offense. Mookie Betts, best player on what could be the best team in baseball. That sounds like an MVP to me.
Let's go from the Northeast to out West. We've talked about their slow start before. The Yankees have righted it, the Dodgers not yet. Their reign over the NL West is over. Fair or foul?
I'm going fair here. I think the Diamondbacks look really strong here, where if I'm a Dodgers fan, not quite panic mode yet. I think this is still a playoff team, but man, the Diamondbacks in that division, I think they're taking them over. Arizona was really good last year, 93 wins. People kind of overlooked that just because the Dodgers ran away with the division. LA is just far from a super team. Way too many injuries on that team, and it's going to be very tough for LA to, I think, keep up with the Diamondbacks, but I think they'll get into the playoffs.
All right, time for some shenanigans and unwritten rules and the like, which always comes along with baseball. Trevor Bauer accused the Astros of doctoring their baseballs, but then later said he thinks that you should be allowed to do that. So pitchers should be allowed to put sticky substances, if you will, on the ball. Fair or foul?
Well, now we're getting to that gray area between fair and foul where, I don't know, unwritten rules.
Got to check the replay?
Yeah, exactly. Check the replay. Now, look, Bauer, he's making a fair point if he's pointing to Garrett Cole's kind of ridiculous, if you want to look at his spin rates so far. Just like extraordinary and out of the norm for Garrett Cole's career. And spin rates don't tend to really change, over the course of career, and it hasn't in Bauer's case. But look, this is foul in terms of just floating it out there on Twitter. And look, we can talk about that's pretty much everything on Twitter maybe is in foul territory. But I think that in this case, it's a mix here where I just don't agree with maybe Bauer just floating out there. But Cole's spin rates right now are just kind of a little bit out of the norm.
Well, Garrett Cole will win the NL Cy Young. Fair or foul?
I don't even think that he's going to finish as the two best pitchers on his pitching staff. I think Cole's off to a phenomenal start, but you got Justin Verlander and Charlie Morton on his team alone who are off to tremendous starts in the American League. Corey Kluber, Luis Severino. Cole's having an incredible season. I think he's going to put these he's going to continue to put these numbers up. He's going to continue to dominate, but I don't know, maybe if the only thing that may get in way of a Cy Young caliber season, maybe Trevor Bauer getting in his head, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Now, real quick, Albert Pujols about to get to 3,000 hits. He's one of the top 10 hitters of all time. Fair or foul?
Albert Pujols, just tremendous hitter. Now within reach, 3,000 hits, 700 home runs maybe, and a 300 career average. Only one other player in baseball history has done that, Hank Aaron. I mean, look, he's a great player, but I'm going to go foul here. I think you look at his first 11 years, he was on track for that, but he's really struggled out there in Anaheim. And, 3,000 hits is an incredible achievement. He's still a Hall of Famer. There's no question about it. Top 10, come on. That's a bit of a stretch there.
All right, fair responses from Albert Chen, MLB baseball editor.
While perhaps the referees weren't able to review all the calls in the Roma-Liverpool game, our very own Luis Miguel Echegaray spent hours watching and rewatching footage just to talk over Champions League with us today. So first, we got to start with this story. Roma president Jim Pallotta was outraged after some missed foul calls in the Roma-Liverpool game, saying that it was an absolute joke that the Champions League doesn't use a video assistant referee. Should UCL consider using a VAR?
First of all, I'm excited that me and you have our own very segment, by the way.
This is exciting. This is groundbreaking today.
And I think that, we should have our own corner, the Matt and Luis Miguel show. I think it will work.
You hear that back there in the control room? Hear that? All right.
All right, so let's talk about VAR. I mean, yes, he had a point, but the problem, I think, listen, here's the issue with VAR and not just the Champions League, but soccer in general. There's a growing hostility towards it, partly because it's not properly understood when should it be used, how it should be used. I mean, I think MLS is doing a good job at doing that. Champions League, unfortunately right now, doesn't have a certain procedures. We have to remember that VAR really means another official making that decision. So no matter what happens, you're going to get mistakes. He has a valid point, but there's still a long way to go in order to try and fix it.
But such is the case when you implement any new system in a sport, right?
Exactly.
So
there's a thing about soccer. There's so many purists that love to just have the momentum of the game without stopping it. Unfortunately, that's not the game that we live in. If you're an NFL fan, NBA fan, you're already accustomed to that. Soccer needs to live up to that as well.
All right, well, the Champions League final is set. It's sure to be pretty chaotic. What's the major weakness of both Madrid and Liverpool that their counterparts should expect to expose?
So let's start with Liverpool and what they can take advantage of when it comes to Real Madrid. I think that if you're a Liverpool fan, you need to look at this and actually think that this is a perfect opponent for you because of the system that Liverpool plays. It's a very chaotic, high-press system that Liverpool likes to play. The other issue as well is that Sadio Mane, one of their main forwards, right now he's on fire. But also the issue is that his opponent on the other side, Carvajal, the right back for Real Madrid, right now we don't know if he's going to be fit for the final. He's one of their best players. He's the right back. So if that happens and he's not part of that team in the first 11, Sadio Mane can really take advantage. This is a perfect storm for Liverpool because I think that this is an opponent that might not be able to deal with high press. For Real Madrid, if history has taught us anything, is like they're the kind of team that can win without needing to control the game. They just get the job done. And I think that this is a perfect match for somebody like Gareth Bale, who can really take advantage of the counter and use his speed in order to attack. So really, there's both sides that the teams can take advantage of. It's just going to be a matter of how they utilize it, not just in 90 minutes, but using two halves and being tactically aware of the opponent.
All of that is very important. But for fans looking at this, I think a lot of people feel like, oh, this is very clearly going to go one way. Who's your pick to win this game?
Oh, that's tough. Listen, I think if Liverpool does what they did against Manchester City, especially in the first 15 minutes of the first game, I think this is Liverpool to win it. I think they have all the attributes and all the weapons to beat Real Madrid. The other side of it is that Real Madrid has been here before, and they have already beaten Bayern Munich, PSG, Juventus, the champion of Germany, the champion of Italy, the champion of France. So they know what it's like to test against the very best. I'm going to go with Liverpool.
All right, Liverpool prediction.
I've been really wrong all year.
Really wrong all year, so take that for what it's worth.
Exactly. Go with the opposite.
Go with the opposite. All right, from Champions League to El Clasico, the Spanish Giants are set to face off this weekend. What should fans expect to see from Barca Madrid?
Well, Barcelona has already won the league, but this is basically the biggest match in the world of global soccer. Two giant opponents. Real Madrid is still really fighting for that second spot. And I think actually this is a good dress rehearsal for them against Liverpool. Somebody like Luis Suarez, Coutinho, and Messi really fit the kind of dynamism that Mane, Firmino, and Salah bring for Liverpool. So, it's going to be a good dress rehearsal for them. Now, in terms of Barcelona, this is monumental because they haven't lost a game yet in this season. So if they can finish this season without losing a match, which is the first time ever in La Liga history, that's quite something.
And to do it on this stage against Real Madrid would be huge. Like you said, too, this could be a dress rehearsal for Real Madrid goes in with a loss. That could also be a little bit of a momentum shifter. A lot of exciting soccer to watch. Luis,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for taking the time. In our first Luis and Madeline segment.
We're going to make that happen.
We're on board with this.
Right.
Of course, the Eagles beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Now we have a Northeast showdown in the NBA. The rivalry renewed, the Sixers and the Celtics. To try and remove all civility from the discourse, we have a generic Boston fan and a generic Philly fan. Philly fan, were you a little bit concerned that Boston started the series strong and the Sixers didn't?
Well, first of all, before I even get there, I just want to say thank you for reminding everybody, because the Eagles did beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl 41-33 with a backup quarterback, and Tom Brady did drop a pass. So thanks for bringing that up first. I do appreciate that. Was I worried about the opening of the Sixers-Celtics series? No, I'm not worried at all. This is all part of the process. Sam Hinkie did not build this team to win a title this year. He built them to contend for a title the next 10 to 15 years. They've got Embiid, they've got Simmons, they've got pieces around them. They're going to do that. I'm not worried at all.
Yo, you have your process, but like Danny Ainge has also made a process of his own. This Celtics team is ready to lock, and they are loaded right now. Not only are they missing their 2 stars, but they're still killing it with people like Scary Terry. Scary Terry. Like, who even knew that was a player? And here he is, just absolutely dropping dimes. Al Horford's killing it. Tatum's killing it. We got Brown coming back. This series is ours. I'm not even worried.
All right, so you mentioned, Boston fan, you mentioned these injuries in the roster that you've got here, but this is a young Philly team the Celtics are going up against. What's the answer for this young talent over there?
It's easy. It's Semi Ojeleye. He is such a stud defensively. Giannis couldn't keep up with him, and now Ben Simmons, he's just going to drive in the lane. The guy doesn't even have a 3-point shot. Semi's going to take him out of the equation. You got J.J. Redick getting a little hot. We're going to throw Semi on him. He's just going to block him.
Leave it to the Boston fan to find an obscure player on the roster and call him out as the MVP. All right.
That's what Brad Stevens does, though. That's what Brad Stevens does.
That is what Brad. All right, Philly fan, are you at all concerned that the youth is going to show in this series?
Am I concerned that the youth is going to show in the series? No, they're a young team. They built a young team on purpose. I'm not worried at all.
All right, long-term thinker.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Who wins the title first, the Sixers or the Celtics?
Of course you want to have a young team. Everybody wants a young team. Listen, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Villanova won the national championship. Meek Mill is free. Brian Dawkins is going into the Hall of Fame. Sly Stallone is filming Creed 2. Everything is coming up Philly that Philly could ever want or dream for. People are calling him the City of Champions. Honestly, I think that's a little bit overdone. I don't know that I'm ready to call them the City of Champions. But whatever, for this argument today, next to this guy, Philly is the City of Champions. Philly can win the title, at least get to the finals. The Warriors are really good. I am very confident about my Sixers.
He's saying this because plain and simply, Philly needs it. In my lifetime, Boston sports have won 10 championships. 10 championships. Philly, 2. Everyone tries to hate on Boston. It's just ridiculous. Everyone knows we're better. Everyone knows we're eventually going to win.
Boston fan clearly juiced up on a gallon of Dunkin' iced coffee over here.
It's time for us to scramble like Randall Cunningham. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, check out @SI Now Live on Twitter for the latest videos and updates.